Journalists are used to celebrating the lives of those who accomplished and those who achieved success. Tonight we celebrate and honor James Joseph MacNeill, a journalist who accomplished, a journalist who was a success, a journalist who was a tireless warrior for the interests of the people. James Joseph Jim MacNeill was born in Glasgow, Scotland on January 18, 1936. The youngest of 6 children. Seamus, as MacNeill was known as a child, first attended school on the island of Barra in the Scottish Hebrides and served a stint in the Royal Navy when he was only 18 years old. He arrived in Toronto, in Canada, in 1958, planning to go to British Columbia, but his plans changed when he came to Prince Edward Island to marry his wife, Shirley, on August 16th, 1960. He got into the newspaper work with the Summerside Journal Pioneer because he couldn't find any other work. He was moved from ad sales to the news department because he brought in more stories than the other Summerside reporters. In 1963, he put out the first 2,000 copies of his own newspaper, the Montague Eastern Graphic. It was a stapled, offset newspaper with the headlines drawn by hand. After 13 years of growth, he established another paper on the opposite end of the island in Alberton. He also published a farm newspaper, The Island Farmer, and an aquaculture monthly newspaper, Atlantic Fish Farming. Jim MacNeill served many years on the board of the Atlantic Community Newspaper Association and was president from 1980 to 1982. He served as the youngest honorary life member of the Canadian Community Newspaper Association. He was the first Canadian president of the International Society of Weekly Newspaper Editors in 1988 and 1989. An outspoken, highly principled editor, Jim won many awards. Some of the more prominent include the 1994 Eugene Survey Award presented by the International Society of Weekly Newspaper Editors for lifetime achievement in courageous editorial writing. The Atlantic Canada Journalist of the Year in 1994. Honorable mention at the 1988 Michener Awards for Journalism for reporting on the proposed fixed crossing from Prince Edward Island to New Brunswick at Rideau Hall in Ottawa. And the 1998 Honorary Doctorate of Civil Laws from the University of King's College in Halifax. It was following this prestigious award ceremony that Jim MacNeill passed away on May 16, 1998, on the ferry, the Confederation, while heading home to his beloved Prince Edward Island. Jim MacNeill was known as a tireless warrior for the interests of the people.
Pretty good. People are afraid to speak out. Well, Jim MacNeill puts what they're thinking into words that then come back to them. That's why they like it. He speaks for them.
It was said he never told jokes. He told stories, great stories, always delivering the punchline by leaning forward, lowering his voice, and punctuating with a curled forefinger. He even had a special name for his subconscious mind. He called him Sam. His friend David Cadigan, owner and publisher of the Miramichi Leader in New Brunswick, once wrote, "We loved Jim for his love of his family. His love for Shirley was absolute. With her, he raised a family that is still like a basket of puppies, warm, curious, cuddly, adventurous, and playful. But don't get me wrong, they can and do run with the big dogs." Jack London, the author, penned these words which have been used to describe our friend and are so appropriate. "I would rather be ashes than dust. I would rather that my spark should burn out in a brilliant blaze than it should be stifled by dry rot. I would rather be a superb meteor, every atom of me in magnificent glow, than a sleepy and permanent planet. The proper function of man is to live, not to exist. I shall not waste my days in trying to prolong them. I shall use my time." A colleague journalist once described Jim MacNeill as the Wayne Gretzky of journalism. High praise indeed for a weekly newspaper man from Montague.
He is no respecter of authority. In fact, he is perhaps one of the most perfect examples of the admonition that journalists should comfort the afflicted and afflict the comfortable that I have ever encountered.
Dr. Jim MacNeill was buried beneath a simple headstone bearing a Celtic cross and the traditional newspaper symbol marking the end of a story, 30. Good night, Sam, wherever you are. Ladies and gentlemen, our newest inductee into the Prince Edward Island Junior Achievement Business Hall of Fame, Dr. James Joseph Seamus MacNeill.